Ash rained from the sky like snow, clinging to shattered buildings and the charred bodies of those who hadn't run fast enough. Bastion City, once a gleaming fortress of human ingenuity, now groaned under the weight of its impending death. Somewhere beneath the fractured skyline, children cried, soldiers barked orders, and above all else, a low, rhythmic thudding approached, the sound of something immense, something alive. They called it the war beast. It had no name in the tongues of men, no allegiance, no master, a being forged in some ancient crucible of flesh and stone, taller than the ruins it now walked through, glowing with a fury of molten veins. Its breath came in snorts of steam, and each movement cracked the pavement like glass under a hammer. No weapon had stopped it. No negotiation had slowed it. Cities fell, nations scattered. Bastion was a last stronghold, and it was already bleeding. Aeon stood alone near a collapsed fountain in the central plaza, his small hands clutched around the straps of an oversized backpack. He was 7 years old and had not spoken a word in almost a year. The world had been too loud, too cruel, too fast. Words had become irrelevant. A blast echoed in the distance as a defense turret finally fired. The missile streaked through the blackened sky and struck the warbeast's side. Fire engulfed the creature, and for a moment, hope flared in the soldier's eyes. Then the fire cleared. The warbeast kept walking. "Fall back!" someone shouted from the barricades. "It's still coming." Iron didn't move. The warbeast stepped into the plaza. Dust swirled in its wake. Its eyes, twin furnaces of red light, swept across the rubble and the quivering men. Its gaze locked onto the child. It paused. The world, somehow, went quieter. Iron's breath fogged in the cooling air. His legs trembled, but he didn't retreat. He felt something then, not fear, but recognition, like a memory that wasn't his. The soldiers behind him watched in frozen horror as the beast lowered itself, its knuckles cracking stone, its maw glowing faintly as it drew closer to the tiny figure that dared to stand unmoving. "Kid, move!" a woman screamed. "Get out of there!" Aeon blinked, his lips parted, not out of panic, but from something deeper, a pull in his chest, like an echo from beneath the surface of everything. The warbeast raised one clawed foot. Aeon raised one hand. And he spoke. "Sit!" The word was barely more than a whisper, but it cracked across the air like thunder. Not loud, but deep, primordial, final. The warbeast stopped. Its leg hovered in the air, trembling slightly, and then, slowly, with the weight of a mountain, it lowered it back to the ground. The warbeast shifted. Its hulking body folded like origami in slow motion, descending with grace utterly foreign to its form. It sat today, not crushed, not injured, not restrained. It obeyed. Silence rolled over the plaza like a wave. For a full minute, no one breathed. Even the smoke seemed to still. Aeon stared up at the creature, eyes wide not with fear, but with something like curiosity. The warbeast stayed back, unmoving, unreadable. Behind him, boots scraped as soldiers emerged cautiously from behind debris. Weapons were aimed, but hands shook. One man dropped his rifle. "What just happened?" someone murmured. He said a word. Another replied, "Hollow, a word." "Yeah, just one." High above, drones circled, capturing everything. The footage would be broadcast before the hour passed. Entire continents would witness a child stop the unstoppable. Aeon turned his head slightly, just enough to glance behind him at the line of stunned soldiers. His mouth didn't open again. He had nothing more to say. At his feet, cracked stone still steamed from the monster's approach. Beside him, the warbeast sat, breathing slowly, deeply, as if waiting for instruction or permission to do something it didn't yet understand. No one dared to approach. No one understood what they'd seen. But everyone knew the world had changed. And in that moment, as the warbeast obeyed the smallest human in the city it was meant to destroy, every weapon pointed at it slowly lowered. The battle was over, but something far greater had just begun. The footage played on every screen across the planet, grainy, jittering slightly from the drone's panic-driven adjustments, but unmistakable. A towering monstrosity of ancient stone and fury, known to governments as Anomaly 01, crouched motionless in the heart of Bastion City. Before it stood a boy. No armor, no escort, just a gray sweater, dusty jeans, and calm eyes. He raised his hand, spoke one word, "Sit," and the impossible happened. In the hours that followed, the world held its breath. Analysts rewound the clip endlessly, searching for visual tricks, audio anomalies, misdirection. There were none. Military command centers froze in collective disbelief. Politicians whispered behind closed doors. And among the flood of news anchors scrambling for something to say, one truth kept rising above the din. The child was real, and the war beast had listened. Ian sat in a white room now, feet dangling off the edge of a medical table too tall for him. The silence here was different. Sanitized. Measured. A soft hum of ventilation filled the air like a lullaby he didn't trust. Across from him sat Major Sarai Halden, uniform crisp, eyes tired. Her voice was calm, but her fingers tapped anxiously on the tablet in her lap. "You don't have to speak," she said gently. "But if you can, I'd like to understand how you did that. The word, the creature, any of it." Ian stared past her, watching the corner of the room as though something were hiding there. He said nothing. Behind the one-way glass, two scientists, a linguist, and a man in a gray suit with no name tag observed like hawks. Halden sighed and leaned forward. "Ian, you saved over 6,000 people. I don't know if you understand what that means. We just want to help. But we need your help too." Still nothing. Halden stood and crossed the room, crouching to meet his eye level. "Are you afraid?" Ian blinked. Slowly, he shook his head. "Then what are you?" His gaze finally shifted to her. For a heartbeat, something old shimmered behind his eyes, something watching through him more than from him. She swallowed hard. Outside, past walls and soldiers and thick layers of blast shielding, the war beast still sat in the plaza, utterly still, like a monolithic dog waiting for its master. It hadn't moved in nearly 14 hours. It didn't respond to drones, lights, noise, or probing instruments. Its molten eyes only tracked one person, Ian. In a crisis meeting beneath the United Alliance military headquarters, panic wore the suit of diplomacy. "Is a walking anomaly," barked General Rasker, slamming her palm against the table. "For all we know, the boy's a failsafe, built in by whatever force made that thing." "Is a child," countered Dr. Miron Voss, head xenolinguist. "And he just commanded something we've failed to understand for decades. That's not a threat. That's a miracle." "A miracle we can't control," muttered the intelligence officer. "And when we can't control something, history says we destroy it." The president of the Alliance leaned forward, voice low and flat. "Is it language?" "We believe so," said Voss. "But not any human tongue. The resonance pattern from the recording suggests something primal, frequencies embedded not in vocabulary, but in intent." "You're saying he didn't just say the word. He meant it." "He was the word," Voss replied, and the beast recognized it. Back in the observation room, Halden stepped out, closing the door quietly behind her. "It is not talking," she reported, rubbing her temples. "Then maybe we stop trying to make him talk," said Voss, "and start listening instead." They turned to the screen again. Ian now sat cross-legged on the table, humming quietly, a child's tune, old, soft, nameless. And for a brief moment, the war beast outside tilted its head, as if it heard the same melody. By dusk, crowds had begun to form outside the military perimeter. People brought flowers. Some knelt in prayer. Others held signs. "Let the boy speak. Child of peace. War beast whisperer." Across social feeds, videos exploded with speculation. Was Ian gifted, cursed, divine? Had humanity witnessed the dawn of a new age? Inside the compound, Halden sat across from him again, this time without the tablet or uniform jacket. "Do you want to go home?" she asked. Ian looked down at his hands. Slowly, he shook his head. "Do you have a home?" A pause. Then, softly, "No." It was the first word he'd spoken since the plaza. Halden felt a chill crawl up her spine. Not because of the word, but because the war beast, 2 miles away, responded in that exact moment. Its head rose. Its chest rumbled with something low and mournful. Its breath steamed visibly in the cool evening air. Across the city, monitors blinked red. Scientists scrambled to interpret its vitals. Soldiers gripped weapons, but it did nothing more. Halden leaned in, gently. Do you know it? Ayan nodded. What is it? He looked at her. Alone. Outside, the war beast began to hum, a low, broken echo of Ayan's tune, and the world began to listen. The war beast dreamed. In the depths of its stone-bound mind, there were no words, only impressions, heat, light, betrayal. It remembered creation as a burning pulse in the dark, a voice carved into its bones before it had a name. That voice was gone now, replaced by silence, endless silence, until the boy. He had not commanded in cruelty. He had spoken with the clarity of something long forgotten. And the war beast had obeyed, not out of subjugation, but relief. Ayan sat near the edge of the containment perimeter, legs folded, back straight. Beyond the shimmering barricade of thermal fences and electromagnetic pulses stood the war beast, silent as ever. It hadn't moved in days, except to shift its massive head when Ayan appeared. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. Major Halden watched from a discreet observation booth, arms crossed, tension coiled tight in her shoulders. It's like they're meditating, she muttered. Or remembering, said Dr. Voss beside her, fingers dancing over a tablet. We've begun detecting synchronized neural pulses between them, low-frequency waves. It's not verbal. It's not even conscious communication in the traditional sense. It's emotional. You're saying they feel each other. I'm saying they're becoming aware of each other, on a level we can't explain. Halden exhaled sharply. And what happens when that awareness spreads to something else? Across the world, tremors had begun. Small at first, ripples along ancient tectonic fault lines. But seismic analysts couldn't explain the resonance patterns. They weren't natural. They were timed, deliberate, rhythmic, as if something beneath the earth was stirring. Deep in the Arctic, a dormant listening post recorded a rumble too precise to be tectonic and too primal to be mechanical. In the ruins of Sa Delta, satellite scans picked up a shift in the stone, the kind of movement that suggested not collapse, but awakening. Something old, something similar. Ayan had seen it all in his dream. He hadn't told the adults. He couldn't. They didn't ask the right questions. They wanted data, theories, tactical advantages. But the war beast had shown him a world before words, a world where creatures like it walked as guardians of balance, not weapons of war. When their makers turned on each other, the guardians became pawns, bound in chains of obedience, reprogrammed through agony, forced to destroy what they were once created to protect. And now, the others were waking. Some would remember peace. Others would remember pain. Ayan pressed his palm to the humming fence. The war beast leaned closer, massive head lowering until its molten gaze was level with his face. Its breath warmed the air between them. They stared at one another, ancient eyes and a child's soul, and the moment stretched like a hell breath. I saw them, Ayan whispered. The war beast did not speak. But something behind its eyes shifted, a flicker of recognition. It had seen them too. Halden's earpiece crackled. Priority signal from command. Global alert status just shifted. Unregistered seismic pulses are intensifying. 3 additional anomalies have emerged, all showing Warbeast-class signatures. They are not stationary. They are moving. She stood up straight. Where? South China Plateau, Nile Sub-Basin, Pacific Deep Trench, all converging inland. Estimated time, 72 hours. Halden turned toward the boy. We don't have time for theory anymore. That night, under guarded escort, Ayan was brought into the war room. Every eye watched him like he was both a messiah and a threat. We need your help, the president of the Alliance said plainly. Ayan didn't respond. These new creatures, can you stop them? Like you stopped this one. Ayan looked past her, to the map. Red markers glowed in slow pulses across 3 continents. His face remained unreadable. No, he said. A chill spread across the room. You won't, someone demanded. I can't, Ayan answered. Not all of them will listen. The room rippled with unease. But you stopped one, Halden said carefully. What made it different? Ayan turned toward her. He was waiting. For what? For someone who didn't want to use him. Silence fell. Halden crouched beside him, voice quieter now. And the others, they remember pain. You can't tell them. You have to ask them. The intelligence director scoffed. We don't have time for philosophy. We're staring down extinction, and we're handing our fate to a 7-year-old. Ian's eyes found his. You've tried everything else. For a beat, no one spoke. The boy's words hung in the air like prophecy. Outside the base, the war beast rose for the first time in days. It turned slowly to the north, as if drawn by a presence no one else could feel. A low rumble echoed across the city. It had heard its kin awakening, and it was ready to meet them.